Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. It's great to have you all again. This new edition of Torah L'Chaim with me, your host, Rabbi Anibal. You can see my name over there, I hope. It's great to see so many of you already connected early in the class. We have actually, this is the beginning of the countdown for Passover, for Pesach. Yes, I'm sorry if I'm freaking you out right now, but yeah, hey, Pesach is coming. Pesach is coming in about, 20 days? About 20 days. So I hope you are already. Oh, I put 5783. It's 5782. Sorry. 83. Let's see who is here. Let's see who is here. Andrea is here. Jerome is here. Rocky Pollack is here. Marinazen Denise is here. Great. So the idea is to take the next sessions to study about Pesach, and this is the way it's going to work. Hi, Debbie Stern. Welcome. I'm going to go like this. Hi, Karen Farkas. Welcome. Debbie Stern is here. Here she is. And Valerie Ring is here. Welcome, Valerie. Welcome. So this is Holly is here. I'm gonna highlight her. Hi, Holly. And Judy Chirac is here. You can stay for a short period. So, okay. I'm gonna do Corey is here. And Peter Petrenko is here. Great to have you guys. Great to have you. So let me explain again what is going to happen here. This is the countdown for Pesach, and it's going to work like this. I put together like a background to Pesach or introduction, so to study and to prepare ourselves mentally and spiritually for Passover. Okay, this will be this week and next one. Then after that, we have a special class about skin diseases. About skin diseases in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible. And this is going to be taught by Jerry Cates, all the way from Edmonton. Actually, he's going to connect remotely. I'm gonna host it. I want to be there, but he's going to teach that. It's going to be very, very interesting. He's an expert. He's a dermatologist, so he knows what he's talking about, and he did Dennis, yikes. Hi, Priscilla, welcome. So he's an expert, and it's very fascinating, the fact that he actually made a research, and he's going to combine his knowledge in the science of skin with whatever is in the Bible. So you can ask him all the questions you may have. It's going to be very interesting. And then after that is already the Thursday right before Pesach. And that is going to be a class where I'm hoping to go over the Haggadah, studying some of the details. So maybe that will enhance your own experience for Pesach as well. You can take notes of that. You can actually share some of those teachings with your own people if you are hosting a Seder, or if you are going to a Seder. It's always good to have these kind of insights to enhance our Pesach experience, right? So that's what I'm hoping to do. Again, this week and next week, preparation for Pesach, then skin diseases, and then the week after, right before Pesach, we are going to go over the Haggadah. Okay, so tell your friends, put it in your calendar. That's the way it's going to work. So today, the idea is to start the process of preparing ourselves for Pesach. And by the way, one of the things that we have to do, and the tradition says we do it right after Purim, is we stop buying chametz as much as we can. Of course, if you like to have the fresh bread and you go to the bakery, right, and you buy, that's great. That's all good. Go buy it, or the pastries. But let's say that, like my case, I like to do that. Even though I don't eat much bread in these days anymore. But my son Ronan, he likes it. So I do like to try to get fresh bread. But I realize that I have some loaves in the freezer. So this is the time when I stop going bread and start buying whatever is in the freezer. The same thing with pasta and other things. I go to the pantry and say, what do we have? Let's start having it right now. To try to eat as much as we can, all the chametz before Pesach. And we should start right away before Purim. Okay, the day after Purim, that's what we should start doing. Denise, you say, let me see. This is interesting. Hey, it never hurts to learn about how science can relate to the text. Yeah, because there one thing, I will give you a little spoiler about what we read in the Torah about the Metzorah, the leper, which I have the impression, I mean, I haven't spoken with Jerry about this, but I think he's going to say that maybe what the Torah mentions is not exactly leprosy. It might be something else. I don't know. But yeah, it's good to compare. And if he says, hey, it's not leprosy, I say, okay, tell me why. Right? He's going to teach that. So going back to Pesach, again, I said, number one, right after Purim, what do? You start eating all the chametz. Number two, what do? Well, you start figuring out how your Sedarim, because we have two Seders, are going to look like. What do I mean? Hey, you have to answer yourself the following questions. Am I going to do it at home, or am I going to go somewhere else? Right? Details like that. You start planning it right after Purim. The day after Purim, that's what we do. I hope you're starting with that process. And then you have to start making plans to sell all the chametz that you are not going to eat or give away before Passover. That is an easy one, because if it's not there, it's going to be there in the next couple of days in our website, the form where you can sell your chametz through me. Okay, I can be your guy to sell the chametz. All you have to do is to sign online a power of attorney allowing me to do that. Let's say who else is here. It says Holden Sommer. Welcome to the class. Karen Farkas, you say, so we gain a lot of weight eating chametz. It depends on your metabolism, right? I will say. Or depends how much you exercise. It's all relative in this life. All relative. And what it says here, Denise, you said, I'm letting the hubby eat all the chametz and kidneyot. Okay. Just, but again, you have to start planning all the things. This year at the Shari Zedek, we have the second night of Pesach is going to be the community seder at Shari Zedek, the congregational seder, we call it, second night. So you can actually, if you're in Winnipeg, you want to participate, you have to call the office. If you still want to do the Seder with us, but you don't want to come to the building, we're going to stream it, and we are going to distribute free Haggadot. The book to follow the Seder, the Haggadah. We're going to distribute free Haggadot, so you will have the same Haggadah we're going to use in our Seder, so you can follow along. Okay, so you have that option. And for the first night of Pesach, I'm going to stream my family Seder. It's going to be, I'm going to do it from one of the rooms at the Shari Zedek, but it's going to be just my wife, my son, and myself. Maybe my mother-in-law if I can convince her. And it's going to be a special Seder. Are you ready for this? It's going to be a pajama Seder. It's going to be the most relaxed Seder in the galaxy. It's going to be streamed. Again, we are going to use the same Haggadah and PDF, of course. Also, if you're going to get it, the PDF will be free. PJ, you know that my wife, my son, and myself, we order online 3 matzah pajamas, matching matzah pajamas. So if you want to see me and my family wearing those matzah pajamas, you have to tune in the first night of Passover. All the details are going to be in our website and Facebook. Let's start studying about Pesach now. Okay, let's go now to before Pesach. Oh, by the way, Josue Selva is here. Welcome to the class. Welcome. Let's begin with the text. I want to bring you guys back in time to before Egypt, because I want you to understand what Egypt represents for a rabbi. So whenever we go through Pesach, we have two ways to understand it. Number one is, the typical story people or kids learn at school, and you study as a story, and you study the details of how it happened, when it happened, Pharaoh thing. We take it like almost like a literal thing, the historical Exodus. And then there is a debate if it really happened the way it's narrated in the Torah or not. But that's all good. But that's only one way to study the Exodus. You see, the other way to study the Exodus is to understand what Egypt represents as a principle, as a concept. Okay? So that's what I want you to understand. And that's why the rabbis say that everything starts way before Egypt. And everything starts with Abraham, our first patriarch. What I'm talking about, look at this. Let's go now to Genesis chapter 15, verses 7 and 8. And it says, Then God said to him is Abraham, I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans to assign this land to you as a possession. Okay, so this is the promise that God made to Abraham about the land of Israel. And then it says, and he said, Abraham said, O Lord, how shall I know that I am to possess it? Okay, what do you think about this verse before I go to the next slide? It's anything. Does it trigger anything on you? And you know me and my coffee by now, right? I always show up to class with a nice espresso coffee. So, anything, does it trigger anything to you? Why do you think I'm presenting this text to you? And you can use the chat, right? I don't know if I said at the beginning. I don't know who is new to the class today. By the way, if you're new to the class, please subscribe to our channel. That is very important if you want to get, and if you're in YouTube, please also, you have to also hit the bell so you get notified every time we go live or every time we upload something to our channel. We go live and upload things all the time, so we don't want you to miss anything from us. Debbie Pollack is here. So Debbie, you say the giving of the Torah. Okay, so what they have in common with the giving of the Torah is the promise, right? It's God announcing something to either an individual or the nation. Holly, you said, let's see, this is very important. Owning the land means you will not serve another master. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, but basically it's the biblical source that points out to the rights of the Jewish people over the land of Israel. Okay, but the rabbis seems to find something very interesting on verse 8. Verse 8. On this hesitation from Abraham. Because after everything that Abraham went through and all the ways that God was present on Abraham's life, then all of a sudden Abraham asks, how shall I know that I am to possess it? Okay? There is doubt there. He hesitates. And now let's go to the Talmud. This is from a tractate called Nedarim, page 32a. And this is what happened in that page of the Talmud. Rabbi Abahu said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, why was Abraham punished by having his descendants enslaved for 210 years in Egypt? And Shmuel answered, because Abraham doubted God's credibility in fulfilling his promise. This is reflected in the verse, how shall I know that I am to possess it? Very interesting. So basically what it says here is Abraham was a great guy, but he was flawed. And I guess there is nothing wrong with that, except that God is expecting certain things on Abraham, and we understand, again, Abraham represents more than Abraham. Abraham represents a concept. Okay, the same way that Egypt is going to represent a concept, a principle. So Abraham represents something that is present in every Jew. In other words, in everybody that came after him, because we are all coming from Abraham. So his essence is present in us. And there is something here that it seems to be flawed from that essence. And that is the fact that he started to doubt God, even though he witnessed so many wonderful things from God, and now all of a sudden he doubts. Okay? So somehow the rabbis connect Egypt with a fix for that flaw. Why did it have to be done in this way? Well, we don't know. But again, we are not talking about facts here anymore. We are not talking about the historical Egypt. We are not talking about the historical Exodus or historical slavery. We're talking about principles and what everything represents. Abraham represents the essence of the Jew. Now the doubt represents something that I guess we all have, which is true. Honestly, be honest with yourself. Have you ever doubted? Of course you did. Have I ever doubted? Of course I have. But it seems to imply that this is something that should be dealt with. We have to deal with these hesitations and doubts we have. Okay? Give me 1 second. Okay, so let's continue with this. I want to bring you now a comment about this topic by the Maharal of Prague. Have you ever heard about this guy, Maharal of Prague? Why was he famous for? Before I show you the text, why was the Maharal of Prague famous? Does anybody know that? Come on. For 100 mitzvah points. Why was he so famous, the Maharal? The Golem. Yes, Karen Farkas. 100 mitzvah points for you. The Golem. He was the creator of the Golem, which is actually spelled Golem, but you got it anyway. Yeah, Golem. I will type it here. This mythical creature that it was created, it was like a artificial human being created by this rabbi to protect the Jewish people of Prague. Very interesting. Okay, so he was very famous. And what did he say about Abraham and Egypt? He said, God placed Abraham's descendants in exile because he was lacking in his belief and trust in him being God. God therefore placed his descendants in exile in order that they would correct this mistake and fully trust in him. They would also see the power of God's deeds for those whom he loves, as well as the awesome power he showed to the Egyptians through the plagues. In other words, it's almost like it's implying here, the Maharal, that Egypt was a place where, beyond slavery, again, forget for a second the historical Egypt and take Egypt as a metaphor, as an allegory, right? So what it says here is that the process of being in Egypt created something, produced a change in the Jewish people, or whoever was experiencing it. Number one, they learned to appreciate God's miracles towards them. Or in other words, they learned to appreciate all the blessings. And number two, they learn to discover, admire, and be moved by the awesome power of God in the world in general. Okay, so not only for what God did to them, but also the way God interacts with the world and how God is in control of the world. Rocky Pollack, you said, so Hashem condemned the people to slavery to make sure they will warm up to him. Sounds paralogical. Yeah, but again, this is beyond slavery. I almost feel that is only one way, the slavery that we read every year on Passover, but it's more than slavery, is the harsh of Egypt, because slavery will make you feel uncomfortable, right? It's going through an uncomfortable place in order for them to feel or to appreciate the blessings. That is happening in our lives in so many different ways. That sometimes we don't appreciate the blessings, and this is very common, right? This is very common, that we don't appreciate what we have until we lose it. And that experience of losing something so you appreciate what you had, you can call it Egypt if you want. It doesn't necessarily mean physical slavery, but all of a sudden that discomfort taught you a lesson. So the word Egypt comes from the word Mitzrayim. It's called Mitzrayim in Hebrew. Mitzrayim called from the word, it means narrow place. So it's not that they went to Egypt, they went to Mitzrayim, they went to a narrow place. When you feel in a narrow place. So that's the experience. And slavery is only one detail or one component of that, which eventually you will see in the Bible and the Torah, that even the fact that they were slaves also involve a teaching when God keeps saying constantly, well, now you will know better how to relate to other people because you were slaves. Remember the way you felt. So everything was an experience here. Everything was an experience. Amparo Goldman is here, and she says, hello, everyone. Okay, welcome. Thank you so much. Debbie Pollack, you say, here, what do you say? Do we have enough trust in Hashem? Of course not. But this is part of life as well. And the thing is, I think at the end of the day, what we are trying to learn here is that God is trying to teach us a lesson. Or no, God is trying to make us understand something. How we get it is up to us. It's up to us. So I will say that the best way to go is like because we have Pesach every year, and we start about this every year, is to learn all these things from something that happened to somebody else. Isn't that great? And bye, Judy. Thank you for coming. Hope to see you next week. Bye. Have a wonderful day. So this is the thing. And again, it's a principle that you can apply for everything in your life. Listen to this. We all know that the way we learn in life is either through mistakes, right? I mean, if you live long enough, you will become a master on virtually in everything, because you will make so many mistakes that you will learn from them that eventually you become a different person for all the mistakes you had, right? But I believe that there is a better way and faster way, and that is to learn from somebody else's mistakes. If you're smart enough, you're not going to learn from your mistakes. You're going to learn from somebody else's mistakes. That's why we read, for example. So we read about other people's experiences, and that has the power to inspire us. What do you think it is when you read a book and you get inspired? I bet what that book is telling the story of somebody else who went through difficult times, and you learn from their experiences, and then you apply it to your life. To me, that's the best way of learning. I don't want to go through the process of being in Mitzrayim, in a narrow place, so then I will learn my lesson. I'd rather learn it from your mistakes than from my mistakes. It's, yeah. Karen Farkas, you say, let's see, we don't really appreciate our health until we are sick. For example, that's just one example. Debbie, you say we need to be grateful for everything in our life as it is right now. Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, even if you go through Egypt, it doesn't mean that you're going to learn the lesson anyway. Sometimes it's also up to you to recognize that Egypt has a lot to teach you. Even if you feel like you're in Egypt now, you have a lot to learn from that experience. It always keep coming to my mind, for example, when Jacob, our patriarch, fought with that angel all night. Remember what happened? That he fought all night, and at the end of the night, even the angel injured Jacob. And then at the end, what is Jacob saying to the angel when the angel was about to leave? I won't let you leave until you bless me. Wow. That is awesome stuff. Jacob saying to the angel, I won't let you go until you bless me. So basically Jacob is saying, hey dude, I haven't gone through all these challenges for all night. Again, the night to me is a representation of a dark period of your life. So Jacob is saying, I didn't go through all this stuff, that it was very painful, without getting at least a blessing out of it. And that should be our attitude. But you will see in a minute how even with Egypt, many people did not learn the lesson and they did not correct their flaws. Let's see. Who is Denise? You have a comment. Hashem is setting the grounds for Israelites to learn. They've never had a test run, so they have to learn from some of the harsh lessons. Although I think Hashem is too harsh at times. Yes, but you see, I think we have to take it like there are many allegories. There are many metaphors. And sometimes the Bible, the Torah exaggerates things a little bit for us to learn the principle. So it's very clear when, for example, when God will say, kill them all. Well, the first thing I do is when God said, kill all that nation, you will say, okay, let's understand what that nation represents, right? And if God said, kill them all until there is nobody left, it means that God is teaching us that there is some kind of traits of characters that we have to eliminate from our lives, totally eliminate from our lives. You know what I mean? The problem is we get stuck when we try to take things too much literally. That's the thing. So let's continue here, and I want to present to you a text that is talking specifically about Egypt as explained by Rashi. Hi, Michael Legoff. He hurt his hip. Yes, correct. So let's jump now to Deuteronomy 4:20, and this is Moses narrating the story of Egypt to the Jewish people before his death. Remember, the whole book of Deuteronomy is a long speech by Moses before he died, right? And so now is Moses talking to the Israelites, and he said, but God took and brought you out of Egypt, that iron blast furnace, to be God's very own people, as is now the case. Okay? So this is interesting because now there comes Rashi, and he's trying to explain why will Moses use the word iron blast furnace. And what Rashi says is, this is a vessel for purifying gold. So, but this is my point. Let's pretend that you find gold, right? You go and you dig and you find gold. What happened? The gold that you find is not ready yet. It has lots of potential, but it's not as valuable until it gets purified. How do you purify gold? Through heat. But after that process, that gold is extremely valuable. So you see, you have the situation now that you can have the raw gold, and it has certain value, still valuable, but the pure gold is even more valuable. So this is what happened with us. We come to this world and we have impurities, and we are valuable the way we are. But sometimes when we can get rid of certain impurities, were even more valuable. Right? You see, there are many things. You see, depends on the way you change your worth or how valuable you are to God and to society, to your family, etc., will change. When you change how valuable you are, it also changes. Let me explain what happened here. Let's say that you have, for example, a piece of, I don't know, iron or steel, right? Just block of steel. It has value, right? But then from there, you took that and you create from there cutlery, right? And you transform that block into cutlery, it will be even more valuable. But if you use that material and you create springs to put inside Rolex watches, it's going to be incredibly more valuable. So, yeah, you may start as a block of iron or steel, but then depends how you transform that, the value is going to change. So it's the same happen with us. We have so much potential, but unless we transform ourselves into something else, we will never reach that potential. And what is saying here is that Egypt was necessary at the time because there were certain impurities that they were not able to remove. But now when we read these stories, we do learn about that it is possible to remove the impurities. And we don't have to go through Egypt because we can learn from their experiences so we can transform our lives. So let me see what you guys wrote here. Sorry, I'm being neglecting the chat. Karen, you're right. But what did you say, Karen? Let's go. Oh, yeah. We don't really appreciate our health until we are sick. I understand now. Denise, you said, what about when God kills off Aaron's two sons? Again, even for that, for that thing, you have to understand what it represents. You can take it as a literal historical fact, something that happened in the past, and it will be very difficult to understand one. But then if you understand that as a concept, when you read the Torah, you always have to ask yourself the following question. What do they represent? The two sons of Aaron. What do they represent? What they did. What does it represent that God said that's wrong? It has to be terminated. Right? That's the thing. So that when you can understand. Because then, for example, there are many rabbis, and I will talk just a little bit, Denise, about that, okay? Because it's nothing to do with Pesach, but it's very important. You will see the story of the two sons of Aaron, that some rabbis understand that they were drunk. And they approached the altar with fire, being drunk, and they died. Okay? And they were wonderful guys, very pure. And that you can understand then the words of God. But so, what do we learn there? You don't show up drunk at work. Because this could happen to you. And you will see in the Torah, immediately after this episode, God is actually specifically telling the priest they should not drink before presenting sacrifices. So there are many things that we can understand from the Torah. David Pollack, our mission here on earth is to reach our true soul potential, which involves many painful experiences. Well, let me give you my experience, which may involve painful experiences. Not necessarily. As I mentioned before, you can learn from your mistakes, or you can learn from somebody else's mistake. That's the best way. Okay, so let's continue here. And I will bring another opinion from the rabbis about what Rashi just said. Egypt is compared to an iron crucible, or the furnace, right? Because God's true purpose behind Egyptian slavery was to purify the Jewish people of their baser characteristics, right? Just as gold is purified in a crucible or in the furnace or through fire. God wanted to remove the base metals so that only pure gold would remain. To this end, many of those Jews who were unworthy died in the plague of darkness, and only those who remained were chosen to receive the Torah. Have you ever heard this? Have you ever heard this? That some Jews, some Israelites did not leave Egypt. Have you ever heard that? That they died during the plague of darkness. And the rabbis will say those were the ones who, even through Egypt, or even with Egypt, with Mitzrayim, they didn't learn the lesson. Because let's be honest, you can go through painful situation in your life and still never get a blessing out of it. You will keep looking at everything negative and never being able to stop for a second to say, okay, can I find something good about it? Maybe, I don't know, because every circumstance is different. So I don't want to give examples. But this is the thing. Amparo, what do you say here? Let me read it. Ones who see the finished object and thinks about what went into it joins his thought with those with the carpenter for the duration of the meditation. Yeah. Sometimes it's easy. Yeah, when we see the final product, we don't know what you have to go through, right? The same thing. I read a story once. If you see, for example, a piece of pottery, and it's beautiful, but you know, if you are that piece of pottery, let's say, for example, let's pretend for a minute that you could become for a second the piece of pottery on that shelf, and to understand every single step of the process that piece of pottery has to go through to become that beautiful piece of pottery. I don't know if you would like to go through the process before, you know, if somebody can tell you all you have to go through to become that beautiful piece. That's the thing. So at the end of the day, it becomes a trusting process, hoping that at the end of the process you will become that beautiful piece of pottery on the shelf. Karen, she said, I thought there were some who chose not to leave, but I didn't realize they died in the plague. Yeah, well, this is a midrash, right? The Torah doesn't say it. So the rabbis pin that on the plague of darkness. Then he said, that's awful, but think about you can relate it to events that are happening today. Yeah, but it's this thing that says, we say, at least can we learn something from it? Are we learning something? Or we have to go through the same thing 1,000 times and we still don't learn the lesson? Yeah. And talk about it. When we and we see it this in different scales and different things, right? Even when you have election days on countries, and you will see people making the same mistakes again and again, and then they complain for the leaders they chose because we have no memory, right? No memory. But Egypt, it's also sometimes we as Jewish people, we don't have good memory of everything that we should have learned in Egypt. We don't. But that's why we celebrate Pesach year after year, to remember it. Yeah. So how do we know this, or why the rabbis say that some of the Israelites died and did not leave Egypt? Where is that coming from? Well, it's coming from this verse. It's coming from bye, Rocky. Thank you for being here. Hope to see you next time. Bye. So where is this coming from? The midrash. It's coming from this verse from Exodus that it says, so God led the people around about by the way of the wilderness at the Sea of Reeds. Now the Israelites went up armed. Why do I repeat it armed? It's only one armed. Out of the land of Egypt. Okay? So this is the interesting thing, because Rashi will try to understand the word arm, which in the Hebrew is chamushim. If you don't understand Hebrew, it's the second line in Hebrew, first word, vachamushim. Okay? So this is what Rashi says. Chamushim can be understood as being derived from chamisha, 5. Actually, the word 5 in Hebrew is chamesh. right? Taking in this sense, the verse means that only 1 out of 5 Israelites departed from Egypt, and the other 4/5 died in Egypt during the 3 days of darkness. Okay, so let's read this verse again. It says, so God led the people round about by the way of the wilderness at the Sea of Reeds. Now the Israelites went up only 1/5 Hamushim out of the land of Egypt. So that's the way Rashi is reading it here. Now, why they say that they died in the plague of darkness and not in the plague of the death of the firstborn, I don't know. I don't know why they pin it into that. But they say that the one who didn't learn the lesson, they died during the plague of darkness. And then we are going to read eventually that there were other people from Egypt, not Jewish people, not Israelites, that they learned the lesson. And they left Egypt with the Israelites. So it's very interesting. Some Israelites didn't learn the lesson, they died in Egypt. And some Egyptians or other nations that they were in Egypt, they learned the lesson and they left Egypt with the Israelites. Michael Legoff, you say we also need to teach our children. Yeah, that's one of the mission statements of Pesach from the Torah. Correct. So that's the thing, that as I mentioned before, we have to learn from somebody else's experience so we don't have to go through them, right? But that sometimes happens when we teach our children. We share with them our experience so they don't have to go through the same mistakes. Or during the case, we talk during the Seder, so they can learn this concept of look what happened in the past, so they don't have to go through that. It said, Jerome said, didn't see the light of God, so darkness. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. But they disagree. The rabbis agree that happened during the plague of darkness. Okay, so we talked about Egypt a little bit, and now it's time to talk about the Exodus. So we learned about what Egypt, Mitzrayim, is teaching us. But what is the Exodus now? The next stage is teaching us, because it's also part of our preparation for Pesach. So this Sfas Emes says, the purpose of the Exodus from Egypt was that we should know that God brought us out from there. For when a person forgets this and grows proud, saying, my strength and abilities created all this success for me, he must be brought to a state of helplessness to show him that everything is from God. So this is the other thing. So at the end of the day, you learn the lesson and then you get out of there. And sometimes it's happened to us in life that we go through difficult times and then the things get better, right? And then what it's teaching us here is you went through that, things get better. At least say, thank you, God, because, I don't know, my health was restored. I'm not at odds with this individual any more than I thought I would be fighting for the rest of my life. And all of a sudden things got better. My work environment all of a sudden became better. So many different things that could happen, right? That we go through difficulty and then things improve. Are we giving thanks to God, or we thought, I did it, or I know it's just a coincidence, it was random. So this is the thing. So this Sfas Emes here, what he's saying is that the Exodus, the next stage, the first thing we should do when we get out of Egypt is to give thanks to God. Otherwise, we get risk to repeat things. And because there is something that we have to learn, right? There's the being ungrateful is one of the impurities that we have, that Egypt's supposed to correct. The same thing that, for example, doubt that Abraham has. That was another impurity, but it was only one of the impurities that it should be eliminated from our lives. In the case of Abraham, his doubt came because he was unable to remember everything that God did for him. And sometimes it happens when we struggle, we have to remember everything that God did for us. And, sometimes say to yourself, God did it for me. and God is going to do it for me again. And that's what gives you hope. Keep moving. That God is going to be there for me once again, because God is in control of the world. Yeah. Clyde says, similar opinions have been made about the Holocaust. I don't believe this. But the Holocaust is different. And I don't want to start into that, because they are, I think the Holocaust is also teaching us about everything that we haven't done. And then it's another thing. It's that, when you ask, where was God during the Holocaust? And I will ask you, where was man during the Holocaust? Have we learned the lesson, what happened when we don't show up? Right? And there you have your teaching about that Mitzrayim, that it was the Holocaust. What do we learn? We learn that we didn't do a thing. And that's what happened when we don't show up. Or you will tell me that there was not enough power in the world to stop Hitler. Of course there was. Of course there was. But nobody did anything until it was too late. And we see the world, that we see signs and how things repeat themselves. And the question that we ask ourselves when we learn about that experience is, are we going to show up this time? Or we have to go through the same mistake and learn it through our own experience instead of learning it from somebody else's experience? But there are many things. Ukraine is one example. But there's many things. The way we react to evil, the question is, did we learn anything? And I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, it seems that we don't learn that, but that's correct. And that's what the things keep happening. So, yeah. Let's continue. Now, this rabbi would say, every time there is a need to give a righteous person the possibility to rising to a very high level, he is thrown into the worst environment so that he should learn that evil is futile and that strive to reach the highest limits. Similarly, when Israel needed to prepare to accept the Torah, God did not send them to heavenly yeshiva, from where Moses took the Torah, but the opposite. He sent them into bondage in Egypt, to be slaves to people who had sunk to the 49th level of impurity, the most depraved and godless level of physical existence. By the way, this is why we have the counting of the Omer after Pesach, before we receive the Torah in Shavuot. 49 levels. So you see, it's a 49 level of impurity, of degradation. So then we have 49 days to elevate ourselves. Keep that in mind, because we are going to try to do the same with Torah L'chaim right after Pesach, and to work on these traits of character, so to prepare ourselves to receive the Torah. So this slavery brought them to a state where they cried out to God. So again, learn the principle here. So basically said that Egypt put them in a position where they cried out to God. In other ways, Egypt made them to remember that there was a God. It's a God was calling them all the time. They never paid attention. They never looked up until they went through Egypt, and then all of a sudden they cried out of God, and God said, okay, now remember I'm here, right? But we don't have to go through Egypt. All you have to do is, learn that, wake up in the morning and say, thank you, God. And God said, here you are. I've been waiting for you. So this return to God, teshuvah, which began in the polar extreme of physical enslavement and frustration, was the cause of their astonishing ascent to the spiritual level of receiving the Torah. But this is something else here. It says that God sent them through these difficult times. Number one, because they were able to endure Him. And number two is because they have the potential. You don't put in if you want to purify or refine gold, well, you need to be sure you have gold first, impure gold. And then, when you have this impure gold, you can put it in the furnace, and then you will have pure gold. But if you don't have pure gold, if you have pure, some other metal, then you won't use it, the same process. And here seems to imply that the potential was so big, and they were so close to find that refinement, that they went through these difficulties to overcome those things that they still have to overcome. And they did. And they did. And then they became pure gold. And then they were ready to receive the Torah. Remember this, with the Torah it's exactly the same. That we think that the Torah is going to be revealed so we can improve. So Reno, you have to become a good person before you earn the rights to receive the Torah. We get it backwards. Once you become a good person, then you qualify to receive the Torah, and then and only then the Torah is going to take you to the next level. So there are lots of impurities. You have to just, out of your own will, free will and desire, you have to remove those impurities from your life, or to actually understand that some of the things you went through are to remove those impurities, improve those things that that they're wrong in your life. So those things that are dragging you down. It's up to you. You do that effort, and then the Torah is going to take you to the next level. That's what I believe it is. You should not wait to receive the Torah before you change. You have to change before you receive the Torah, and then everything you learn in the Torah is going to take you even higher. It's going to take you to a higher level. But you have to purify your heart before, because if you don't do that, then what happens is you're going to study Torah, and unfortunately you're going to use Torah to justify your evil. And we see this all the time around the world. People with impure hearts opening a holy book and doing evil, feeling that they are justified by that holy book. How is that possible? Well, that's what happened, my belief. That's what happened when you open a holy book with an impure heart. That's why we need to clean ourselves from impurities before we engage in Torah study. Again, my opinion, didn't read it anywhere. That's what I believe. Michael Legoff, okay, very cool. Counting the Omer, 7 weeks, 7 days. Yeah, and then it's Shavuot. Michael Legoff, you say, I like this. I will highlight it. Hold on. You say even 24K gold is only 99.9 pure. As humans, we are likely always to have some impurities. Of course. The idea is we always give our 100%. Maybe our 100% is 99.9% in God's eyes, right? But for us, it's 100%. That's why even if it's 24K gold, right? If it's 99.9 pure, but we call it pure gold. We, of course, at some level it's not, but our perception is that it's pure. That's what we have to aim, I will say. That's what we have to aim. Yeah. And I have one more text for you to share. This is very interesting. It said, every era has its Egypt, his Mitzrayim, narrow places, remember from my lesson at the beginning? Its own brand of slavery and temptation that it inhibits the development of the individual and the group. And therefore, every year, the Seder reminds us that this night is different from all other nights. Different from all other nights of the year, but also different from every Seder night that has preceded it in history, for every era has its own Egypt. And that's the other thing that we have to do before Pesach, right? It's not something that happened in one generation 3,500 years ago. It's not even something that happens to a generation 100 years ago. It's something that happens to us. And it's up to us to recognize what is the Mitzrayim, what is the Egypt of this generation. Fine. Now the next question is, what are you going to do about it? Because we have to get out of Mitzrayim. Maybe we have to help somebody else to get out of Mitzrayim. But every generation is different. Okay? Yeah. Okay. That's what I wanted to teach you today. Let me get here so you can see my face again. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning in this morning. Hello, Andrea. What do you say here? Let me see. My conversation we had, Rabbi, at the time didn't understand the blessing. I see it. Okay, thank you. And so this is the thing. Next class, we're going to start the class by analyzing the plagues, the 10 plagues, and what they mean, what they signified. Again, not the historical moment, but the principle, the teaching behind the plagues. That's what's going to be the beginning of the next class, and then we'll continue going some of the going through some of the stories of Egypt and the Exodus, so we can get inspired with that and prepare ourselves for a more meaningful Passover. Okay, so thank you again, everyone. If you miss anything from this class, don't worry. I'm going to restream it at 8 p.m. Central Time. I missed it last week. You know what happened? It was ridiculous last week because of the melody that I used at the beginning of the class. Facebook didn't like it and it blocked it. So it wouldn't let me restream it. So hopefully this week at 8 p.m. is going to go well. So if you want to repeat any of the things, remember 8 p.m. Central Time. This class is going to go out again. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. COVID is still there. Be good. Stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.